The Hippodrome of Olympia. The Hippodrome of Olympia was the most prestigious equestrian sports arena of the ancient Greek world and one of the most important venues ever created, despite the fact that almost nothing of it remains visible today. While the stadium at Olympia hosted foot races and combat sports, the Hippodrome was where elite power, wealth, and risk converged. The Hippodrome was constructed sometime before the 5th century BCE and lay south of Nean Stadium on a flat floodplain near the Alphos River. Unlike the stone-built Roman circuses, Greek hippodromes relied largely on open space and temporary installations. Ancient sources describe it as massive, with a length estimated over 600 meters, though the exact dimension remains unknown. This uncertainty is openly acknowledged by archaeologists, and is largely attributed to centuries of flooding that altered the landscape. Equestrian events were among the most prestigious competitions at Olympia. These included 4-horse chariot races, 2-horse chariot races, mule chariot races briefly, and mounted horse races. Unlike foot races where victory belonged solely to the athlete, equestrian victories were awarded to the owner of the horses, not the driver. This distinction made the hippodrome a stage for aristocrats, tyrants, and even royalty, who could claim Olympic victory without personally risking injury. Chariot racing here was extremely dangerous. The turning posts at either end of the track were the most lethal points where crashes were common. Ancient writers describe collisions that destroyed chariots, injured drivers, and sometimes killed horses. Despite this, though, the events remained central to the Olympic program for centuries. The Hippodrome also carried a strong religious importance. Like all Olympic competitions, races were dedicated to Zeus. Victors were crowned with olive wreaths and commemorated with statues. Several surviving inscriptions and literary references confirm that equestrian victors were among the most celebrated Olympians, often using their success to legitimize political power back home. Unlike the stadium, which was protected by its elevated position, the Hippodrome suffered from its location near the river. Flooding over centuries gradually erased the physical traces of the track, and by the Roman period, parts of it were already compromised. Ground surveys and river studies support the traditional location, but no definitive structural remains have ever been uncovered. And this absence isn't due to neglect or lack of importance, but to the vulnerability of the site's geography. But despite its invisibility today, it ranks as the most important ancient sports arena because it hosted the highest status events of the Olympic Games. It was here that kings competed through proxies, where fortunes were risked on speed and control, and where Olympic glory extended beyond individual athleticism. More than any stone-built arena, the Hippodrome reveals what ancient sport truly represented. It wasn't always about fairness. It was about dominance, reputation, and the ability to command resources. It was an arena defined not by monuments, but by motion, danger, and the fleeting moment of victory. The very qualities that made the ancient Olympic Games endure in human history. The Stadium of Aphrodisius. This is one of the best preserved ancient stadiums in the entire Mediterranean world, and it offers a rare example of a large athletic arena that remains structurally intact into the modern era. It's located in the city of Aphrodisius, in southwestern Anatolium. The stadium was constructed in the late 1st century BCE, or early 1st century CE, during a period of prosperity under Roman rule. Unlike many stadiums that relied heavily on natural slopes, the Stadium of Aphrodisius was built almost entirely as a freestanding structure. It measures about 262 meters long and 59 meters wide, and it could seat an estimated 30,000 people. The seating tiers were constructed from stone blocks, arranged in a continuous horseshoe shape, providing excellent visibility from nearly every angle. It was designed originally for Greek-style athletic competitions, foot races, wrestling, boxing, and the pentathlon. The running track followed traditional stadium proportions, and the layout included clearly defined spectator sections. By the late Roman period, athletic contests here declined in popularity and across the empire, while gladiatorial spectacles gained prominence. Rather than constructing a new amphitheatre, Aphrodisius modified the stadium to accommodate gladiatorial games. This involved reinforcing the lower seating areas and adding protective barriers to separate spectators from the arena floor. This stadium has remained in use longer than most comparable structures, even after organized games declined. Its robust construction allowed it to survive earthquakes that damaged other buildings in Africa. Excavations conducted in the 20th century revealed the stadium in exceptional condition. Unlike Olympia or Delhi, where the seating was largely earthen, Aphrodisius preserves full stone tiers, stairways, and passageways. This level of preservation allows historians to study crowd movement, seating hierarchy, and even arena management with unusual clarity. But what makes it especially important is its honesty. It shows how ancient sport venues adapted over time without being rebuilt or replaced. Rather than freezing a single moment in history, this stadium records centuries of changing athletic culture, and it makes it one of the most informative ancient sports arenas ever preserved. The Circus of Carthage. The Circus of Carthage was one of the largest chariot racing arenas in the Western Roman Empire. It was built during the Roman imperial period, likely during the 2nd century CE. The circus was constructed after Carthage had been refounded as a Roman colony. It was designed primarily, of course, for chariot racing, the most popular spectator sport in Roman society. Measurements indicate that the arena stretched for about 470 meters in length and 45 meters in width, making it comparable in scale to major circuses like those in Rome and Constantinople. The layout followed the standard Roman circus. A long narrow track was divided by a central spin, around which chariots raced counterclockwise. At one end were the carceres, or starting gates, arranged in a staggered formation to equalize the starting distances. Decorative elements once adorned the spina, including statues, shrines, and lap counting devices, though none survive intact today. Literary comparisons with other Roman circuses suggest dolphins or eggs were likely used to mark the laps, but no direct evidence remains at Carthage. The chariot racing here followed the same faction system seen elsewhere in the empire. Teams were identified by colors, most commonly blues and greens. They competed fiercely, and supporters formed a strong social identities around them. But the circus also played a civic role beyond sport. Public festivals, imperial celebrations, and religious ceremonies were often staged in or around the arena. This practice reinforced loyalty to Roman authority, while also providing mass entertainment on a regular schedule. After the decline of the Roman rule in North Africa, the Circus of Carthage gradually fell into disuse. Vandal occupation in the 5th century CE, and later, Byzantine control later altered the city's infrastructure. Over time, the site was buried under sediment and development, and unlike the Colosseum or Circus Maximus, much of the structure was dismantled for building materials. The Circus of Carthage is significant not because of its state of preservation, but because of what it represents. It shows that Roman sport was not a local tradition confined. Arena of Verona. The Arena of Verona is one of the best preserved amphitheaters in existence, constructed in the 1st century CE, likely during the reign of Emperor Augustus. The arena was built outside the city's ancient walls. The arena is elliptical in shape, measuring about 139 meters long and 109 meters wide. At its peak, it could hold an estimated 30,000 spectators. The structure was built using local limestone and concrete, with carefully designed vaults and staircases, and many of these circulation features remain functional today, which shows the durability of Roman engineering. Gladiatorial games were the arena's primary sporting function. These contests followed standardized rules, with fighters categorized by weapon type, armor, and experience. As in other Roman cities, the games were sponsored by wealthy officials seeking public favor, and in attendance was free. The arena also hosted venedices, or staged animal hunts, which required complex logistics. Animals were imported from across the Roman Empire, housed in underground spaces, and released into the arena through controlled entrances. Unlike many amphitheaters, Verona's arena survived the collapse of the Western Roman Empire with relatively limited damage. A major earthquake in 1117 CE destroyed much of the outer ring, but the core structure remained intact. By the Renaissance, the arena had become a defining feature of the city's identity. The seating, sightlines, and acoustics remain largely as the Romans designed them. Modern study has confirmed that the arena's layout now closely matches its original Roman form. No evidence suggests it was substantially rebuilt in later centuries. Instead, it was maintained and repaired as needed. The Ithsman Stadium. The Ithsman Stadium was one of the 4 principal athletic venues of the Pan-Hellenic world, hosting the Isthmian Games near the narrow land bridge connecting mainland Greece to the Peloponnese. These games were traditionally dated to around 580 BCE, and were held in honor of Poseidon, whose sanctuary lay only a short distance from the stadium. Unlike Olympia or Neha, the Ithsman Stadium went through multiple phases of construction. Evidence shows at least 2 major stadium sites associated with the sanctuary. The earlier stadium, dating to the Archaic and Classical periods, was replaced in the 4th century BCE by a new stadium built farther east. The later stadium featured a running track approximately 181 meters long, consistent with standard Greek stadium measurements. The track surface was compacted, earth carefully leveled. Stone starting blocks survive at one end, complete with foot grooves and attachment points for the starting mechanisms. Spectator seating here was largely natural. Urn embankments lined the sides of the track with no evidence of extensive permanent stone seating for the general public. Temporary wooden seating may have been erected during festivals, which was a practice known from literary sources, but not archaeologically preserved here. The capacity estimates do vary, but the stadium likely accommodated several thousand people, fewer than Olympia, but comparable to Nean. The games here included foot races, wrestling, boxing, pancration, and as well as equestrian events held in separate arenas. Unlike the Olympic Games, the Isthmian Games awarded material prizes in addition to symbolic ones. Victors received wreaths made of pine, or later celery, along with valuable prizes like amphora or other goods. Under Roman rule, the Isthmian Games continued and even gained some prominence due to Corinth refounding as a Roman colony. Roman emperors supported the festival, and athletic competitions remained largely Greek in style, unlike the Roman gladiatorial spectacles. The games stopped in the late 4th century CE, following imperial bans on pagan festivals, and over time the stadium was buried by sediment and agriculture. Systematic excavations in the 20th century, though, uncovered the track, the starting blocks, and the associated structures with enough clarity to reconstruct the layout. Today, the Ithsman Stadium remains quieter than Olympia or Delhi, but it offers an unusually clear view of the Pan-Hellenic arena, shaped by geography and trade. Amphitheatre of Capua. The Amphitheatre of Capua was one of the largest gladiatorial arenas in the Roman world, second only to the Colosseum in Rome. Construction began in the late 1st century BCE, with major expansions completed under the emperors Augustus and Hadrian. By the 2nd century CE, the structure measured about 170 meters by 140 meters and could hold an estimated 60,000 people. Capua was especially known for its gladiatorial schools. The most notable of these was a school associated with Spartacus, who began his rebellion in 73 BCE after escaping from training facilities near the city. While the uprising predates the final form of the amphitheater, Capua's reputation as a center of training was already firmly established. Built primarily of travertine and brick-faced concrete, it featured 4 stories with engaged columns in the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian orders. Subterranean chambers beneath the arena floor had gladiators, animals, and equipment. Lifts and ramps allowed controlled entrances into the arena, which ensured some precise timing during the events. Fighters here were paired based on weapon type and experience level, and referees enforced regulations during bouts. Spectator seating followed the Roman social hierarchy. The elite citizens sat close to the arena, while common citizens and non-citizens occupied the upper tiers. After the decline of the Western Roman Empire, the amphitheater did fall into disuse. Earthquakes damaged the structure, and much of its stone was reused in medieval buildings. Modern excavations, though, have revealed extensive remains, making Capua one of the best sites for studying infrastructure outside Rome. Unlike the Colosseum, which was heavily modified over centuries, Capua preserves clearer evidence of how the regional arenas functioned within the empire. The Nean Stadium. The Nean Stadium was one of the 4 principal athletic venues of the Pan-Hellenic Games, alongside Olympia, Delhi, and Isthmium. It's located near the sanctuary of Zeus at Nam. The stadium hosted the Nean Games, which were first recorded in 573 BCE. Like other major Greek festivals, these games combined athletic competition with religious observance and were central to the shared cultural identity of the Greek world. The stadium was constructed outside the main sanctuary, separated from the Temple of Zeus by a short processional route. Athletes entered the arena through a vated stone tunnel, approximately 36 meters long, which still survives. This entrance is one of the most distinctive features of the site, and offers rare insights into how the ancient competitors experienced the transition from ritual space to competitive arena. The running track measured about 178 meters in length. Consistent with Greek stadium standards, the surface was compacted earth, carefully prepared to ensure traction and fairness. The stone starting blocks are preserved at both ends of the track, and they include grooves and sockets for high-leg starting mechanisms, confirming that the races were tightly regulated. The earthen embankments formed the primary viewing areas, with no permanent stone seating for the general public. Archaeological evidence suggests that only officials and priests has designated seating, likely made of wood or stone, near the starting line. The Nean Games included foot races, wrestling, boxing, pancration, and As with other Pan-Hellenic festivals, competitors were required to be free Greek males, and athletes competed nude. Visitors received a wreath made of wild celery, rather than olive or laurel, distinguishing Nean symbolically from the other games. Under Roman rule, the games here continued for several centuries, though their prominence did decline. Unlike Olympia, Nean did not receive extensive Roman upgrades. and as a result, the stadium retained its Greek form without major alterations. Today, the Nean Stadium is one of the most intact Greek athletic venues. Visitors can walk the entrance tunnel, stand in the starting line, and see the arena almost exactly as ancient athletes did. The Colosseum in Rome, perhaps the most famous ancient sports arena ever built and the definitive symbol of Roman mass entertainment. The Colosseum was constructed between 72 and 80 CE, under Emperors Vespasian and Titus. Now it's officially known as the Flavian Amphitheatre. It was designed to host public spectacles on a scale never before attempted in stone architecture. The Colosseum could hold about 50,000 people arranged according to strict social hierarchy. Senators occupied the lowest tier, followed by equestrians, citizens, and finally, women and the poor in the upper levels. Seating assignments were enforced by law, and inscriptions carved into the stone seats indicated their designated sections. The building's elliptical shape measures roughly 189 by 156 meters, and it ensured clear sightlines from nearly every seated position. The primary events held here were gladiatorial combats. Now these were not chaotic free-for-all. They were carefully scheduled sporting contests involving trained professionals. Gladiators belonged to distinct classes based on armor and weapon type, and bouts were often structured to pit contrasting styles against each other. Outcomes were not always fatal. Survival rates did vary, and trained gladiators represented a financial investment for their owners. In addition to the gladiatorial contest, they had staged hunts that involved wild animals imported from across the empire. These events were testing human agility and coordination rather than brute strength alone. There's evidence that the athletic exhibitions and reenactments of mythological scenes were also staged, though the exact nature of some of the performances is still debated due to limited surviving documentation. One of the Colosseum's most advanced features was its substructure. It's known as the Hippodrome. This underground network of corridors, lifts, and holding areas allowed the animals, fighters, and scenery to be raised into the arena. The system relied on pulleys, counterweights, and coordinated labor, which showed a level of sophistication that was rarely matched until the industrial era. The arena floor itself was made of wood covered with sand, which absorbed blood and provided traction. The Latin word harina, meaning sand, is the origin of the modern term arena. Above, a retractable fabric canopy shaded the spectators from the sun, and it was operated by sailors from the Roman Navy, which showed the complexity of the event logistics. But after the decline of the Western Roman Empire, the Colosseum fell out of use as a sporting venue. Earthquakes, stone reuse, and neglect stripped much of the original structure. Today, it stands as not just a monument, but the most influential sports arena ever built. While the nature of sport, of course, has changed, the Colosseum established the template for large-scale spectator competition that still defines our arenas today. The Panic Stadium. This is unique among ancient sports arenas because it survives today in fully reconstructed form, built entirely of marble, known as the Kalima Maro, meaning beautiful marble. It occupies the same site where athletic contests were held as early as the 4th century BCE, and while its current appearance reflects the 19th century restoration, the design closely follows its ancient predecessor. The stadium was originally constructed under the Athenian statesman like Kyagus around 330 BCE. The games were Athens' most important religious and civic festival, held every 4 years in honor of the goddess Athena. Events including foot races, combat sports, equestrian contests, and ceremonial processions. And unlike Olympia, the Panthea Games offered material prizes, like M4 filled with sacred olive oil, which made them economically significant for the athletes. The stadium followed a horseshoe-shaped design that was built into a natural ravine between two hills. This shape allowed great visibility for the spectators and the efficient crowd flow. Early seating was made of wood, but in the 2nd century, the Roman statesman Herodes Atticus rebuilt the entire structure in Pentelic marble. This Roman-era stadium could hold up to 50,000 people and made it one of the largest venues of antiquity. And while there's no firm evidence of full gladiatorial games, sources do suggest that it may have hosted exhibitions and displays consistent with Roman entertainment. But despite the adaptations, the stadium had retained its Greek identity and religious associations longer than many others. After antiquity, the structure had fallen into ruin and was gradually buried. The marble blocks were reused elsewhere in Athens, leaving only traces visible by the medieval period. Excavations in the 19th century revealed enough of the original foundations to allow an accurate reconstruction, which was financed largely by Greek benefactor George Averrof. The stadium was rebuilt for the first modern Olympic Games in 1896. But unlike many reconstructions, this one adhered closely to the evidence that archaeology discovered, preserving the ancient proportions and orientation. And even the running track still follows the ancient length, and the marble reflects the Roman-era modifications rather than any modern interpretation.